Hello, Raleigh. This is citizen reporter Robert Courts coming to you from the Your Backyard News Network. And I'm following up on my series of the local candidates that are committed to citizen engagement and active transparency. And today I'm very pleased to have Dr. Terrence Ruth. Dr. Ruth, thank you for joining me today.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Well, Dr. Ruth, I've been following you. Of course, you ran in the last race, and I've always admired your commitment to, well, transparency and local. Can you tell us why and how you are committed to the local?
Yeah, I actually created a whole podcast on why I'm committed. The podcast is called Illogical by Truth, but really the roots of it is Raleigh. Ella Baker organized the sit-ins in Shaw, and in those sit-ins, she has a famous quote that says, "Powerful people and empowered people do not need a powerful ruler." And I believe in empowering people to be powerful. Matter of fact, local government works best when people are well informed and well represented. And that's all I'm trying to execute in my philosophy around local government.
Well, Dr. Ruth is transparent, that you are committed to doing what's best for the city at large without having necessarily a particular edge. So would you please take a minute to talk about the role of mayor and how that is unique in Raleigh?
Yeah, so to me, when I'm out in the campaign trail, the one thing I do, and I try to be honest towards this, is listen. And what I hear is that most people see the mayoral role as a strong mayor, almost like the mayor of New York or Chicago. Here we have a weak mayoral structure, which means almost like a board chair, and then like the city manager is like the CEO. And so here the role and the function is a bit different. You're guiding, overview, and approving policy, but the execution sits with the city manager. So just to give you an example, the salary of a mayor here is about 37, I think, around 37,000. The salary of a city manager hovers around 300,000. Just to give you the context in those two roles. What you're electing here is somebody to cast a vision, somebody to communicate policy in human terms, so that people don't always have to be in attendance. There's a luxury to be able to attend city council meetings. That's a luxury. Most people are working day to day and working very hard. So we need a mayor that's going to speak in common language and in the difficult conversations around policy, where we're at, why is it difficult, so that people don't have to always be present in a city council meeting, but they know that their mayor is going to speak to them or represent them well.
Well, let's dive in a little deeper on this, Dr. Ruth. In the situation where we have it, that is the dynamic, right? I feel that if the citizens are not actively engaged, they might end up with representation that doesn't know and perhaps don't care. And I know that you have a different, transparent, open access approach to it. So you as a mayor or a strong mayor committed to transparency is very important.
Yeah, to me, past 4 years, engagement has been our Achilles heel. Past 4 years, we can go through a series of decisions, but what's more important is that now we have an opportunity to actually have a dynamic engagement approach with citizens. Every other industry, you would be dissatisfied the way you're engaged by our city. In any other industry, you could you could talk about your grocery store. Even your grocery store is sending you emails, coupons. They're pinging you when you walk into the store. I mean, you're like getting real access to information. I think our city, with all the tech that surrounds us, with all the university that surrounds us, with all the tech professionals and leaders in the collective aggregate of PhDs in this area. I think we have a chance to really have a dynamic engagement process by which people can have language broken down to them. There's an individual in our city that's decoding ordinances, city decisions, and putting it in regular language Said the average person doesn't need a PhD in development, land use, city planning. They could just be a everyday citizen caring about their city, and they can understand what's going on when they're talking about R1, R2, R3, CX. There's people here that can help make sure that our decisions are transparent, that the process is clear to all.
Well, Dr. Ruth, it seems like in our past, we've had mayors that champion that, and we have mayors that don't, and actually try to use that to promote their own agenda or the agenda of people that back them. But you're going to commit to be that transparent, that conduit for all the citizens. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I mean, so I want to go a little bit deeper here, Robert, because I teach policy and research at NC State.
Yes.
The trends that we're seeing are concerning. People are opting out of every major institution. They're opting out of faith communities. They're opting out of higher ed. They're opting out of public schools, and they're also opting out of both big parties. The fastest growing party in our state is the unaffiliated independent voter. And so, yes, and so that part, you're seeing a trend of people opting out. They're dissatisfied. So I think if you don't have transparent, clear, trustworthy government at the local level, what the data is showing is that democracy at stake, and not just having a smooth running city. I wish that was the only thing at stake, but people are starting to question the soil by which we have built our city. And I want to preserve the soil. And I'm not screaming of some existential issue. I'm telling you what's the data showing us. And so to me, I think the local level is the last line of defense for preserving a good quality, satisfying democracy that people feel seen, heard, and represented well.
Dr. Ruth, that is the message. I think I want my audience to take away is that you are committed to be the local hero. The buck stops with Dr. Ruth, and he's going to ensure that we don't have a runaway government of any kind. It's you deserve the government you elect. And I really appreciate your commitment to us, Dr. Ruth, and not some commitment or some agenda. So I don't mean to gush, but I am very grateful for you.
Thank you. And again, I said last time I ran that I'm a student of the community. And I don't mean that in some just cool phrase. As a professor, you are humbled by the amount of knowledge you think you know and the amount of knowledge that's possible. And I think that's the same thing with community. If you have a level of arrogance around what you think community knows and you're not humble to actually learn, you realize that once you enter community, that there's a lot to learn. And very briefly, I know we don't have a lot of time. I was invited to a kickball tournament in Southeast Raleigh, one of the areas where you see the highest level of arrests, pullovers, gun incidents. The community is about 300 people, Robert, organized, no news media, no law enforcement, and it's been going on for 10 years. And the whole tournament is around preserving a ceasefire in their community to decrease violence in their community. And it was organized by their community.
Dr. Ruth, that is what we do in Raleigh, right? From the parades to the small business organizations to the music festivals. These are homegrown, Dr. Ruth.
That's right.
And we want a local leader of our government that supports us, not tears it down.
That's right.
So thank you. But before you go, I do have one gotcha question. I'm sorry. I know this is
Brian.
All right. Dr. Ruth, we have a real problem with housing affordability in Raleigh, and I would like to know real briefly what you can do about it and what you will do about it.
No, I think for one, just stating the problem in the actual crisis, most people don't know because we have a hard time communicating to residents. The deficit is real. Even if you zoom out from our city and look at the county, the deficit is 65,000 homes that we need today. And if that was dollars, it's $3.2 billion. We passed an $80 million bond, the largest in our city history. That's pennies to what we actually need. So one is to have a regional county approach where we lock our resources together to attack this very complex issue.
Yes,
That's
sir.
number one. It's not about me championing my policy and winning the largest bond battle. That does nothing for the region. So we need to lead as a capital city in the region on affordable housing. Number two, support people who are doing innovative and creative things like neighbor to neighbor.
Yes.
I was in a living room with a group of people who initially started that neighbor to neighbor framework. They said we need affordable ownership, not just rental. We need all hands on deck. And they did a ribbon cutting a couple of weeks ago of affordable ownership with equity for families who are living in South Beach Raleigh and want to stay. And I want to continue to support those sorts of efforts that sits outside of the traditional home ownership process or home rental.
Well, Dr. Ruth, it's your servant's heart that keeps me coming back to you. I've seen you in the field. I've seen you in my neighborhood. I've seen you all over town. You are truly out there. So
thank you.
What can my audience do to help you in your campaign, Dr. Ruth?
Number one, please share anything I post on your platforms. What we're seeing is that people will listen to their neighbors before they listen to campaign narratives. So please share anything on my Instagram, Facebook, website with your peers. And the second thing, we always accept donations and volunteers. And that's truthforraleigh.org, truthforraleigh.org, and Truth for Raleigh on every platform.
Well, let me tell you, ladies, gentlemen, Raleigh, Dr. Ruth is worth checking out. He's worth spending time with. Please make a small donation if you can. And if you can get it on a regular recurring, $50 helps. $100 is a lot. He's putting it together for us. He needs our help. That being said, Raleigh, all this, Dr. Ruth for mayor is in your backyard. Dr. Ruth, let's wave him out. See you, Raleigh. Come back soon.
Take care.